Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Good morning, Syracuse. Oh, it's a better morning than that. Good morning, Syracuse. Okay, first to my colleagues, and you've heard from my colleagues and some great elected representatives. It's a pleasure to be with them. But let's have a big round of applause for my friend, your great county executive, Joni Mahoney. Pleasure to be with you, Joni. Mayor Stephanie Miner, an old friend of mine who's doing a great job as mayor. Pleasure to be with you, Mayor. Thank you for being with us. Assemblyman Sam Roberts, I don't want to tell you how many years Sam and I go back, but it's a pleasure to have him in Albany. Sam Roberts, pleasure to be with you. Senator Patty Ritchie, who's a freshman but leaving a big mark in Albany and doing a great job representing her district. Pleasure to be with you, Senator. You know, one of the things we did do well last year is we consciously made a decision to leave the politics at the door. You know, so much of the political system now gets caught up in the partisanship. I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, and that then, in many ways, typifies and stultifies the conversation. We said, you know what, Democrat, Republican, baloney. We're New Yorkers first. And let's act as New Yorkers about what's in the best interest of the people of our districts, the people of our state, and leave the partisanship aside. And we did, and we had a great year of progress. And I applaud my colleagues for doing that. Let's give them another round of applause. I am very excited to be here. I'm just excited in general today, first of all. I had a great day yesterday. You know, as governor, you don't get a lot of special treats. You know, there are not a lot of special perks as governor that I would recommend to anyone. But yesterday I actually had one of those special governor days. I got to join the parade for the Giants in New York City. And I got to be on the float with the Maras, who are the owners of the Giants, and Steve Tisch and the Tisch family that own the Giants, and Eli Manning and Justin Tuck right in that front parade float. And I had two overwhelming feelings. First, go Giants. How great were they, and what a great season they had. And they really are a beautiful story of this state because they didn't give up, right? They weren't doing great in the beginning of the season, but they didn't give up. They stuck to it. And also, when you look at that team, it really is people from all over the globe who come to New York and that great melting pot that is New York. So they, in many ways, the Giants typify New York and what's best about this state. And the outpouring of energy and enthusiasm was infectious. The second overwhelming feeling I had was just being small, standing next to Eli Manning and Justin Tuck. They are big, big guys. Listen to Sam and the county executive kid. I mean, these guys are big. I am not a small guy. I normally don't feel diminutive, but even Eli Manning, these are just large, large fellows, so I was feeling very petite as governor of the state. But it's a pleasure to be here, and that same winning feeling, I can tell you, is going to happen tonight when Syracuse trounces Georgetown. Now, we're here to talk to you today about our plans for the state. I'm starting my second year as governor, and in the beginning of the year, the chief executive lays out his or her vision for the state. The President of the United States does the State of the Union address. I do the State of the State. The county executive will do the State of the county. The mayor will do the State of the city. But the broad picture, the broad vision for what the plan is, and then the budget address, and the budget address basically does the specifics of how you're going to get there. So the state of the state is the vision, the budget is the specific steps, and I made this presentation in Albany to the legislature. But more than just making it to the legislature, I want to make it to you today, and I want to bring this presentation to people all across the state because it's very simple at the end of the day. I work for you, and this is your state, and it's your family, and it's your community, and it's your future. And I work for you, and that relationship is very important to me. And I want to make sure you know what my plans are and what I'm thinking, and I want to know what you're thinking. And I want you to be part of this. So rather than just present it in Albany, it's important to me to present it to you. So you get to hear it, you give me your feedback, and hopefully you get involved. Quickly, I want to start with where we were last year when we started, because this second year is going to build on what we did last year and hopefully build on the success and the energy. When we started last year, there's no doubt about it, the state had real problems and people had real pain. I just finished campaigning all across the state. The devastation of this economy is not to be underestimated. The hardship, the anxiety that people were feeling. At the same time, the state government in Albany was in a terrible position and in a terrible place. It was rife with scandal. It was ineffective. And we had a $10 billion deficit, which was an historically large deficit. But even more than the fiscal deficit, we had a trust deficit, a performance deficit, an integrity deficit. The people of the state just didn't trust the state government, period. It was that simple. And these two things together were a bad combination. People had real problems, and the government that was supposed to be able to help people who had problems was incapacitated and didn't have the credibility to actually make a difference. We said that we were at a crossroads and that we had a choice to make, and it was a fundamental choice. We were either going to remain dysfunctional and divided as a government, or we were going to come together to reestablish our government, to rebuild our state, and we did make the right choice. We chose to change the culture of Albany. We said we were going to put people first, not the special interests. And last year's legislative session really will go down in the history books as one of the most productive legislative sessions in modern political history. And that, my friends, the credit goes to your representatives who are with us today. I'd ask them to stand once again so we can give them a round of applause for a job well done. We did have a long list of accomplishments. We closed a $10 billion deficit. We did it with no gimmicks. First ever property tax cap. We closed 3,800 unnecessary prison beds. We eliminated the MTA payroll tax, which was a terrible tax downstate, especially on small businesses. We passed the toughest rent regulations in 30 years. We launched a New York Open for Business campaign and regional councils that you'll hear more about. An affordable energy policy. Provided desperately needed flood relief. Remember, we also had devastating floods and storms last year. We passed real ethics reform, and we attacked chronic high unemployment among inner city youth for the first time. And we also did two other things. We had a great accomplishment in the area of social justice and a great accomplishment in the area of economic justice. This state made history, and it led the nation when it passed for the first time marriage equality for all New Yorkers everywhere. And this state's action is now resonating all across the country. I can't tell you how many states and how many governors and how many legislatures are now taking up marriage equality because of what we did, because this nation gets if you can do it in New York, you can do it anywhere. And if they do it in New York, maybe you should be doing it. And the power of our example is breathtaking, and we see it in marriage equality. But we didn't stop there, because we had a second major problem in this state, which was we had an unfair tax code. And it's this simple. Under our old tax code, whether you made $20,000 or you made $20 million, you paid taxes at the same rate. Just think about that. It was just plain wrong. We brought fairness to New York, and this was our principle. The more you make, the more you pay. And the more you make, the higher the rate you pay at. That's just simply fair in this state. And we also reduced taxes so the middle class pays the lowest tax rate in 58 years. Now, that's even hard to get your head around, 58 years, right? Because 58 years, that was a long, long time ago. 58 years was 1953. 1953, price of gasoline was 29 cents a gallon. Last time taxes were this low. Elvis Presley was registering for the draft 58 years ago. Jackie Robinson was playing second base for the Brooklyn Dodgers. I was just a twinkle in my father's eye 58 years ago. But even then, my father had big plans for me. He was thinking ahead. So 2011 was a great year, and I applaud my colleagues for their good work. But there's also no doubt that while we've accomplished a lot, we've only just begun, and now is the time to get this state really to work, building a new New York. Step one is creating a New York that is open for business. It's all about getting this economy running and getting jobs generated. If the economy is running and jobs are being generated, that's the best thing we can do for an individual. That's the best thing I can do for the city of Syracuse. It's the best thing I can do for the county of Onondaga. Create that tax base, create those jobs, and then everything else can go from there. And it is all about jobs, 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 and for too long this state hasn't gotten that. For too long this state was anti-business, sending the wrong signals, and chasing businesses from this state and losing people who then chase the businesses out of state. We're reversing that mentality, but it's an affirmative action. We have a two-part strategy. First is a macro strategy, second is a micro strategy. The macro is basically a top-down, the micro is a bottom-up. From the top down, we have to set a new signal about New York, that this is a business-friendly state. It is not the tax capital of the nation. It is not the regulation capital of the nation. We want businesses coming here. We want them locating. We want them growing. And this is an entrepreneurial government that will work with the private sector to generate jobs. That's a much different signal than we've been sending. And it's a much different New York than they now think about when they think about New York. I spent years in Washington under the Clinton administration. I worked in every state in the nation. Businesses always said, well, New York, that's that anti-business state. No, we're turning that around. That's the first order of business. The second is a bottom-up economic development strategy that says, look, the economy in New York exists in regions. There is no one New York State economy. There's a New York State reputation, but then there are regional economies. There's a central New York economy, which is different than the Long Island economy, which is different than the North Country economy, which is different than the Western New York economy. And if you really want to build the economies, you have to do it region by region. There is no one brush that you can paint across the entire state. On the macro, on changing the reputation, we proposed a new budget for this state. The budget has a $2 billion deficit, which means we have to make up $2 billion. And my budget was very simple. I want to make up that $2 billion deficit by cutting the government expense, especially cutting the government expense of my own agencies in Albany. But I'm not going to raise taxes on the people of this state again because they just can't afford it, and it would be the wrong signal. So we're going to close that deficit, and we're going to do it with no new taxes, no new fees, no gimmicks, and I want the legislature to pass this budget on time this year like they did last year, and I think they're going to do it. We also have to enact pension reform, not just for the state, but for the county executive, for the mayor. we cannot afford the cost of public pensions anymore. They are going to bankrupt the state and local governments. The cost has increased exponentially, over 185% from 2009 to 2015. They literally are just plain unaffordable. We want to make a change only for future employees. No current pension holder, no current employee will be affected. Only for future employees going forward, but we have to get the cost of pensions under control, and we have to do it this year. That's also in the budget. We want to propose a second round of the regional economic development grants that you heard the senator talk about that worked so well last time. They incentivize the regions to come together to create jobs. Nancy Cantor is here with us today. She was instrumental on your regional council. There's a lot of good energy. I want to keep that going with the second round of economic development grants to keep the economy running. I want to keep the state building on our economic strength. The number one industry in this state is what? It's tourism. $50 billion came into this state from tourism in 2010. We have to stay ahead of the competition. One of the great economic generators, one of the great magnets for this state to bring people to this state are convention centers, trade shows that are now internationally competitive. What state is going to get to host an international trade show? We have a convention center in New York City. At one time, it was one of the best in the country, one of the best on the globe. Over the years, the other cities and states have passed us by. New York is now actually number 12. I want to build the largest convention center in the country. I want those trade shows coming here. I want those tourists coming here. I want those tourist dollars coming here. Creation of the convention center can be privately financed. It'll create thousands of jobs in the meantime, and it'll move us from number 12 to number 1 to the largest convention center. Let's say we're open for business in a big way all across this planet, and this will send that signal. Also, I want to propose that the state change its constitution to allow casino gaming. Now, this is important because it's a controversial topic, but it's also a great potential for the state. When you say casino gaming, I think everybody would agree in a perfect world, you might have no casinos anywhere, right? No gambling anywhere. Nobody then would ever lose anything. We don't live in a perfect world, however. And it's time that we actually confronted reality in this state. We have a constitution that prohibits gambling. So if you ask a lot of New Yorkers, do you have gambling in New York? They'll say, we don't have gambling, because our Constitution prohibits it. But when you look at a map, we do have gambling in the state. First, we have casinos, legal casinos, on Indian reservations. Why? Because our state constitution doesn't apply to Indian reservations. So we have casinos on Indian reservations. Over the years, to get around the Constitution, we've developed something called racinos. What is a racino? Racino is basically a casino with an R. That's what a racino is. It is something that we designed because we couldn't have casinos on non-Indian land. Now, one of my sisters sees this slide, and she says, you know, Andrew, you're wrong. We do have casinos. I said, no, we have casinos on Indian land. We don't have them off Indian land. And she says, you're wrong. She's my older sister, and, you know, I don't want to get into this whole conversation. But I said, look, I'm not wrong. The governor of the state, I am telling you we don't have casinos on non-Indian land. And she says, no, you're wrong. I've been to casinos. I said, no. You were at racinos. She said, no, I've never been to a racino. I never even heard that word before. I've been to casinos. I said, no, you're wrong, and this is sort of a brother-sister conversation that went back and forth. But it provoked me to look into the matter beyond just the law. And it makes the case even clearer. We don't have casinos. No, we do have casinos. We have establishments that are technically racinos, but they are advertised as casinos. Everything says casino, and if you just went there, you would think you are going to a casino. This is literally their advertisement, what it says as you're walking into the place. So they are all across the state. That is how they're advertised. That's what people think they're doing. This is just a myth that we have been living, that we don't have casinos. We do have casinos. And then on the Native American lands, certainly they are not only advertised as casinos, but they are full casinos. We actually have 29,000 gaming machines in the state, which is more than Atlantic City. So my position is very simple. Just recognize the reality and stop living the illusion. We have casinos. We have gaming. It's here. It's not a question of gambling or no gambling. It's a question of recognizing the reality and then regulating it as such and maximizing the revenue for this state and protecting New Yorkers in this state, and understand that if it exists, let's make sure it's the best economic development generator for this state that we can possibly have, and let's amend the Constitution and make it legal, and let's do it this year. We also have a great opportunity to rebuild New York. We need jobs. We also need to rebuild our infrastructure to be competitive and safe. When you look at the condition of our infrastructure in this state, it's frightening. 32% of the bridges deficient, 40% of the roads fair or poor, 83% of the state parks in a state of disrepair. We want to embark on a $15 billion capital campaign to rebuild New York. It will improve over 100 bridges statewide, 15 in central New York, over 2,000 miles of road, 150 miles of road in central New York, Madison County, Oswego County, Cayuga, Onondaga, and a lot of land in Cortland, roads in Cortland. Why so many in Cortland? We don't quite know. But the roads in Cortland are in very bad shape, I can tell you that from this. 88 municipal water systems, 17 in central New York, 113 flood control projects. We also need to power our economic growth. And this is important because any business you talk to will say they need affordable energy and a supply of energy to grow. I want to build an energy highway system all across this state. When you look at the state, we have supplies of power in the north and the west, and we have a tremendous demand downstate. We can build a grid, a smart energy grid that connects the entire state the way Eisenhower's highway system connected the nation and grew the economy. The highway system of today is the energy grid system. We can have private sector companies come in and build it. We can master plan it. We have to do it anyway because you can't build without power. And I say we do it this year. If a new New York is about jobs, it's also about a world-class education. And those two things go together. Jobs and the economy and opportunity for all. And how do you have opportunity? You have it through the education system. Our SUNY system is a state jewel. And our SUNY system at one time made the promise to working families all across the state that you could have an affordable world-class education. You could have a great college education from our SUNY system. The SUNY system has fallen into a state of disrepair, and it is not as competitive as it was at one time. I want to change that. We started this year. I want to continue it next year with a competition that we run among the SUNY schools where we get them to compete to increase and improve the academic excellence of the school, but also be a job generator for the region that they serve. We incentivize that with $20 million per competition. I think we can improve the SUNY system. I think it's something that we must do, because what made this state the great state is everyone has a chance to do the best they can with their God-given talents. It requires an affordable education to do that. Let's invest in SUNY. It's investing in ourselves. I also this year want government to focus on its priority. I think if you ask any of my colleagues in government service, what is their top priority? They'll say first, the economy, jobs, getting that working. Tied for first is the public education system, and making sure, as I just said, everyone in this state gets a first-class education. When it comes to public education, that is probably where I learned my most important lesson as a rookie governor last year. And what I learned is that education and public education is actually big, big business, and very powerful businesses, especially in Albany, and very tough from my point of view, because everyone in the education system has a high-priced, powerful lobbyist in Albany. The superintendents, they have lobbyists. Principals have lobbyists. The teachers, they have many, many lobbyists, actually. School boards have lobbyists. Maintenance personnel have lobbyists. Bus drivers have lobbyists. You know the only group without lobbyists in Albany? Can you guess? The students. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Well, I'm going to take a second job this year. I'm going to be governor of the state. I'm also going to be the part-time student lobbyist. That's my door. You see my new title. I'm going to take this part-time position on a pro bono basis. I'm not going to get paid. I don't want my colleagues to think I'm going to have any ethical problems as governor, because we really do have a crisis in education. And there's a reform movement all across the country that is shifting the focus onto the student rather than the industry, rather than the business of education, and focus on student achievement rather than the industry as a measure of success. But this is going to be a fundamental change in thinking, my friends. We have to shift from focusing on the process to results, from the system to the individual, from focusing on the salaries and the pensions of the people who work in the education system, to the graduation rates and the test results of the students. It's not about the bureaucracy, and it's not about growing the bureaucracy. It's about helping the student, and it's this simple. It's not about the adults. It's about the children. And we need to shift the focus to the performance of our education system, and we have to understand what is working and what is not working. And we need an evaluation system so we can actually find out what's working and what's not working, and what teachers are working and what schools are working and what school districts are working and what's not. Let's find out what teachers are working and what teachers are excelling, so we can find out what works and we can replicate it. Let's find out what teachers are struggling so we can get them the help that they need. And that's what you would do in any industry, any area. Focus on the performance. Now, we said we were going to do this 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, we won a big federal grant 2 years ago on the fact that we were going to put a teacher evaluation system in place. And we won $700 million from the federal government. 2 years later, there's still no evaluation system in place. Federal government called up, they said they want their money back. You know why there's no evaluation system in place? Because the bureaucracy has resisted. Why? Because it's change and it's threatening, and the bureaucracy is resisting. We were supposed to have it in place. We have 758 school districts in the state. 0 have an evaluation system after 2 years. 0. It is inexcusable. It is inexcusable. And at one point, enough is enough. And for me, this is the point where enough is enough. It is a crisis, and we must act, and this is what we're going to do. State Education Department has been working on this with the unions for 2 years, and they've been unable to agree on an evaluation system. I gave them a deadline of February 16th. And I said, if you don't have an evaluation system agreed to by February 16th, I will do my own evaluation system, and I will give it to the legislature and ask the legislature to pass it, because enough is enough. We need an evaluation system. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm not going to lose any more time and watch our students get left behind. Once the state agrees to the evaluation system, it will then go to all 758 school districts. I want to give them 1 year to implement the evaluation system locally. If they don't implement the evaluation system at the end of the year, that school district will not be eligible for increases in state aid. Very simple. And it'll be a simple equation. If the school districts don't accept the evaluation system, and they don't get themselves in a room and agree and come up with an evaluation system, then they're not going to get the increases. No evaluation, no money, period. Just for dramatic effect, I guess. My last point is this. New York is on the way back. We had a great year. We're going to build on the momentum this year. This is major reform for a new New York. And change is hard. Change is hard on every level. Change is an interesting concept. In theory, everybody wants change. You go to any workplace and you say, do we need change? And everybody would say, oh, we need change. We need change. You go to any husband and wife and you say, do we need change? They'll say, oh, we need change. A lot of changes. When you probe a little deeper, you'll find out what they really mean is, when they say change, they mean the other people have to change. Wife means the husband has to change. Husband means the wife has to change. They're doing just fine themselves. Problem is always the other person. That is true all across the board. So change is hard. I'm trying to radically change the education system. And the unions and the special interests that created that system are resisting that change. I'm trying to radically change the pension system. And the unions and the special interests that created that pension system are trying to resist that change. Your legislators are then in the middle. And the special interests go to your legislators and say, don't change. Don't change. And the special interests are very, very powerful in Albany. Don't kid yourself. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of power. They're campaign donors. They're very influential politically. So they go to that legislature and they say, resist the change. Support us. Support the special interests. And you know what I need? I need you to say no. I need you to stand up and say to your legislature and say to the legislators, I want you to represent the people of your district and the people of this state and make the changes and make the reforms you need to make for the people of this state, and stand up to the special interest and stand up to the special interest money and do what you need to do to make the government work for the people, because the government is about you. I need you to get involved. You can do it by email, you can do it on websites. I need you to get involved. Democracy works when the people get engaged. Democracy works when the people stand up and their voices are heard loud and true. You want to make a change in your community? It starts with you. I need you. I can't do it without you. I am nothing without you. The governor of the state is just a representative of the people. But I need you to stand up as a chorus and say, enough is enough. We had a great year last year. Let's build on that success. Let's make this state better than this state has ever been before. This is the Empire State for a good reason. And I believe in this state with every gene in my body. And I have seen every other state, and I can tell you nobody has what we have in this state. Nobody has the history and the topography and the demography and the academic universities and the healthcare universities. Nobody has the strength of the people. We just haven't had a government as good as the people of this state. And that's changing because of you. Let's do what we did last year. Let's come together. Let's put the politics aside, and let's make this state shine. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Governor. That was a very inspiring speech. This governor has redefined what it means to be a leader. He's done all of the hard work for us. He says the things people are afraid to say. He's standing up to the special interest groups. He has made it easy now for us. We have to get the ball across the goal line. I implore all of you to go to NewYorkGetInvolved.com. Help this governor because he's helping to change New York State. Thank you, Governor. This concludes our program.